Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. Want to thank our partners and sponsors. First, number one is Walther Firearms, proud sponsor of AndersonShooting.com and this program, and most specifically the Walther PDP steel frame, which is the finest production competition firearm I have ever touched. It's as simple as that. If you can fondle one. It comes like all the other Walther guns, 99% of the pistols, 30-day money-back guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, it will be your problem. Well, actually, if you don't like it for any reason, it will be your problem because you'll be wrong, but it won't be your problem because you can get your money back, okay? And regarding how it feels, if you're used to kind of a lightish polymer gun, rhymes with clock, let's say, picking up the Walther PDP steel frame will feel very substantial. And if you like the feel of a gun that rhymes with breezy Maddow 2, if you like that feel, this is a very similar feel with a much better trigger. If you're bothered by that pesky double action first shot, or if you're suffering light strikes because you got that thing tuned to within an inch of reliability, you won't have that problem with the Walther. Jay Beal tells me that it measures at about 4 pounds. It feels closer to 2.5. Somebody sent me a message and said, hey, you got to try this performance trigger. I'm sure I'll try it eventually, but it is not required for great performance right out of the box. Put a dot on that thing and get to work. And of course, Targets USA manufactures the finest steel targetry you can shoot. Finest steel targetry? Targets USA manufactures the finest steel targetry. It is portable, it is affordable, it is the best. CR Speed, as you know, manufactures the finest gun handling gadgetry you can wrap around your waist or anywhere else, straight from South Africa. And of course, the AMG-Lab.com Commanderson timer continues to turn heads by putting the time into the tablet. More on that later. Hunter's HD Gold, as you know, is the only eyewear that I wear, and I are wearing it right now. Outdoor Dynamics remanufactures the finest competition ammunition you can dispense from a Freedom Seed dispenser, and ShootingSportsInnovations.com is a lot to type because there's a lot to see when you get done typing. All right, let's do a little bit of marketing. I just scheduled 2 mental management opportunities in February. We're not traveling a whole lot in February, so February 6th to 8th at 6 p.m. and February 20 through the 22nd at 3 p.m. That's Eastern time. And if you need or want a different time slot, February is going to be a great month to make that happen. If you're in a weird time zone or if you need an unusual time, shoot me an email, steveandersonshooting.com, mental management class, ! Tell me when you're available in the month of February, and I'll try my best to accommodate that within reason. Okay? Just remember, I'm in the Eastern time zone. So if you're like Australia, that's like a day and a half away. So I'm willing to do it at an unusual time, but try to figure out where I'm at while you think about where you're at so we can be in the same place together. Also want to let you know, or remind you, we're going to be in Gaskin, Florida, which is pretty close to Pensacola, February 10th and 11th at the RPGI Farm. You can sign up for that one at AndersonShooting.com, upcoming classes. And speaking of upcoming classes, if you are interested in saving years of struggle, getting to your goal, or reaching your potential, that is my specialty. I wondered about a year or two ago, why am I seeing more 50 and 60-year-olds in class? And then I realized, oh, I know why. It was a hard thing to understand. But let's say you're a little older. The good news is you probably have more resources than you did when you were 20 or 30. Probably have more time, more money. That's good. What you don't have is 5 to 10 years to screw around. You don't have, if you're 50 or 60, you don't have 5 to 10 years to screw around and experiment and make mistakes. You need to get this stuff figured out right now. And if you're a newer shooter, that's even better. Wouldn't it be nice to save 5 years of experimentation, 5 years of bad advice, 5 years of rush, try, hurry, slow down, get your hits? Guys, I have got this stuff figured out. I can get you your potential extremely quickly. And if you don't believe me, ask Jay Beal. If you don't believe me, ask Joey Sauerland. Okay? Those are the two best examples I can think of quickly of people that have embraced my methodology pretty early and gotten some pretty extraordinary results. Okay? We can do the same exact thing for you, but you have to buy into the whole system. You can't just take, I'm going to dry fire a little bit. Well, that leaves out the mental component. You can't say, I'm just going to go out and shoot a bunch of rounds. Well, shooting a bunch of rounds isn't really necessary to get great. Obviously, you're going to have to shoot some. But I am convinced that once you learn a couple of things off the range, what you do on the range won't take anywhere near as much time or ammunition. Okay? So we can do a standard class. That's most appropriate for C class, B class, wanting to get better. We can do an advanced class. That's most appropriate for A to M to G, wanting to increase and crush and dominate. Those classes aren't a whole lot different in terms of what we actually do, but how we do it is very different. If you're a master class shooter and you're struggling to hit a popper at 12 yards, it's going to be a different conversation than if you're a C class shooter struggling to hit a popper at 12 yards. It's going to be a little bit different conversation. My favorite story about that is we had a drill one time where you were going to move from 4 positions and shoot a popper at each position. And that's primarily a movement drill, and we worked on that a bunch. And then for fun, we had a competition at the end. And the competition was how long or how many rounds can you go from these 4 corners without missing? First guy gets up, 10 or 12, miss. Second guy gets up, 10 or 12, miss. And then this older gentleman, he's probably in his 50s, Care Optics guy, he gets up and he goes like 47 rounds without missing. He was doubled over. He was breathing hard, 47 rounds. And then the limited Grandmaster comes to the line, and he's making sure that he's got 50 or 60 rounds on his belt because he's getting ready to win this thing. Okay? He's a limited Grandmaster. He's getting ready to win this thing. And he gets up and misses his very first shot. There is volumes to learn from that. We don't have time to get into that, but you should be able to figure out what he learned. We can also do a match mode class. Match mode class would be I shoot a match with you as the beginning or end of the weekend, depending on when the match is. And then if we do the match first, then the opportunities are technical. If we do the match second, the opportunities are more mental. And that's just how that works. 3 days would be ideal for that. That way we can do both. And we can also do mental management at your location and then go shoot a match. Okay, we're doing that for the silhouette guys. Last time I mentioned that one, the guy messaged me and said, have a look at my primitive firearm. So yeah, we're going to go do mental management for silhouette shooters. We're going to go shoot a match. It's going to be awesome. That is the best way to learn to apply mental management is the classroom day and then the range day. And you have me right there with you, guiding you through that whole process so you can see how it works in real time. So if you're interested in some of that, you just let me know, steve@andersonshooting.com, and put I want a class in my area in the subject line. I respond to those very, very quickly. All right, so what I want to tell you about today is the most unique training weekend I have ever had. I'm going to tell you a little story. It goes like this. So my buddy lives near San Antonio, and we've worked with him a couple of times. He's a mental management graduate, and he says, hey, I want you to come with me to a match so we can apply this stuff in real time. I said, that's perfect. And then the day after, we'll go shoot. I said, that's even better. Okay, so we go there, and as we're settling in, we find out that the match has been canceled. It was very cold, very rainy in Texas. It was even cold by anybody's standards. It was below freezing and rain in most of Texas. Well, Texas is pretty big. But we couldn't find a match to go to. So we're scrambling all over practice square. I called Darren Wood. Darren Wood, find me a match. Darren Wood's like a super genius. So he found us a match. Registration closed. Oh no. So I'm thinking, who do I know in Texas? And you folks that I know at Texas, I would have got to you eventually, right? But my next phone call was my buddy Ben Hart, Team Beretta. I said, Ben, I need to find a match to go to. He's in Las Vegas at the SHOT Show. He tells me he's with his family, but I suspect, well, it doesn't matter. He told me he was with his family. Couldn't talk. That's fine. Hey, need to find a match. Do you know anybody at the I believe it's the Austin Practical Shooter Club? He goes, yeah, Alex Acosta. Stand by for a direct message. So Ben Hart pulls some strings. Alex Acosta pulled some strings. I used my minor celebrity status to get us to the match. Success. Now we have a match to go to. 32. I think it was 28 degrees that morning. So we drove 2 hours to Austin, Texas. So it's below freezing when we get there, but it's not a problem because we're dressed for it. Guys, the environment is only the weather environment is only a problem if you're not prepared for it. Okay? Layers, 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 layers. As many layers as you think you need, then add another one. It's just simple as that. Okay? Over prepare for the weather. That's extremely important. So we get there about a half hour before about 45 minutes before the match is supposed to start. We start walking stages and they yell at us, hey, you got to help us build these things. Okay, no problem. We're here to help. So we help build the stages, start walking stages. And this particular match was interesting because it went from you've got all the time in the world to first shooter to the line, like in a snap of a finger. And we were lingering on stage 3 because it was a little bit more complicated and we thought we had plenty of time. And then I get to stage 1 and my shooter is in the restroom with no mags loaded. So the big lesson there is get to your first stage early. Do the pre-walk all you want. But whatever time you think you need to be at the first stage, you need to be there 10 minutes before that. I respectfully tried to get that done. I was like, hey man, let's get back over to stage 1. Oh, I want to look at stage 3. Hey man, let's get back over to stage 1. I want to look at stage 3. Well, okay. The other thing we learned is if we had the mags loaded, I had 2 hours to load mags in the car. That's another thing that we should have done was arrive with all the magazines loaded. He already had a pretty good idea of his plan on stage 1, but it created this environment of feeling, not necessarily being late, although we were, but feeling late, right? This minor degree of panic, like, oh boy, if I'm the first shooter, this is going to be bad, right? You want to avoid that. Had that been our normal match, we would have known that it goes from screw around to let's go very quickly. But that was an error that we made that we will not ever make again. So we were late to stage 1 without mags loaded, but it's not a problem because he's way down in the shooting order. Okay, now this particular first stage, and you Austin Practical Shooting Club people, it was an uprange step into the shooting area, turn and draw. It is a massive DQ trap. Well, I don't know about trap. It's potentially a DQ problem for the 180. So I didn't say anything to my client, but I'm thinking, oh man, we have moved mountains to get to this match. If he DQs on the first shot, it's going to be a rough weekend. But I know better than to say anything to him, because if I plant that seed in his mind, he's going to be thinking it. So I know better than to say that. So instead what I did was I said, hey man, why don't you show me how you're going to step into that position? I want to make sure it's efficient. He goes, yeah, no problem. So he shows me how. It looks very safe, so problem solved. But the big takeaway there is if you're worried about something, think about the solution as opposed to the problem. So I could have said, hey, watch the 180. I don't want you to get DQ'd, but I know better. I said, hey, show me how you're going to step into that first position. Okay, cool. Yeah, looks great. Okay. So this stage was also 3 shots per target. And I don't know about you guys, but I never practiced 3 shots per target. It's so rare that I don't know if there's a huge value in doing it. And things like that are different than normal are usually only a problem to the extent that you think about them being abnormal. The RO here was very good about reminding people they don't always do that. The RO will not always go out of his way to remind you that the round count is abnormal, but in this case they did. So 3 shots per target. It also had a stomp pad that activated some swinging steel. Client did pretty well on that one because of a little bit of feeling late. He got in a little bit of a hurry on that one, had a couple of accuracy problems. But because we use mental management, we know how to solve that. Okay, mental management, it won't prevent you from making mental mistakes, but when you really understand the system, it makes them very easy to correct with minimal damage to the rest of the match. Minimal damage. Okay? So after that, my shooter decided to shoot alphas, which is great. Well, shooting alphas is way better than rush, try, hurry. Okay, it's a much, much better strategy. However, it's not the best strategy. Are you telling me shooting alphas ain't the best strategy? Yeah, that's what I'm telling you, and we're going to get there in just a minute. So stages 2, 3, 4, and 5, he decided to shoot alphas. And predictably, the accuracy problems disappeared. Okay? But he's feeling like he's leaving something on the table. Right? We had Alex Acosta was on the squad, and another really quick open shooter, I think his name was Emmett something, I don't remember his last name, was also on the squad. So we're watching those guys light it up pretty good. And we're watching some other carry optics guys light it up pretty good. And we know that we're under trying a little bit. But remember, under trying is always better than over trying, but it's not top performance. And the reason that under trying or over trying will never be top performance is because they both require the conscious control of speed, which both require the conscious mind to do that, which limit or prevent access to subconscious skill. So when you consciously control your speed, you are literally denying yourself access to your training. Very, very, I don't know if that's simple or obvious. I keep harping on it because I don't think people understand what happens when you control your speed. I don't think people understand that when you consciously control your speed, you are literally preventing access to your training on numerous levels, maybe every level. Okay, so stage 6 had a little bit more struggle to it. And in our post-match analysis, we find out that in stage 6, shooter may have been hoping to finish strong. Hoping to finish strong will usually cause overtrying. And I don't remember exactly what happened on stage 6, but it wasn't one of our best stages. Okay. Ironically, our best stage was the classifier. Shot an A-class run in below freezing temperatures. That's pretty awesome. I believe it was righty-tighty was the classifier. It's the one where you finish your last three targets strong hand only. What we discovered was there's 2 decent ways to shoot that stage, and it really all depends on where you want to finish up strong hand only. But very proud of my shooter for shooting an A-class run in the freezing cold, and I believe Alex Acosta hundoed it in below freezing weather. That's pretty sweet. So congratulations. I sent him that message, but I want to congratulate him publicly. So match is over. We now have a 2-hour drive to begin to analyze our mental performance. And the shooter came to the conclusion before I did. Shooting alphas is slower than calling shots. What's the difference? Shooting alphas will slow you down to ensure perfect alphas. Remember, we're talking USPSA here, not IDPA, because IDPA is a little different, okay? Calling your shots will produce a high percentage of acceptable shots, most of which will be alphas. The vast majority of which will be in the center of the target, if you're doing it right. The center of the available target area. And isn't that where the alpha is, in the center of the available? Well, on an open target, the alpha is pretty much in the middle. So calling shots in the middle of the available target area is a brilliant strategy. Brilliant strategy. Okay. So we get back, and the weather forecast is not great for where we are. And so I said, hey, I'm going to do something for you that I have recommended, but I've never actually done for somebody. So because the match was shot and scored with the AMG-lab.com Commanderson timer, we had access to every shot fired on that range in that match. That is the best information you could ever get. I mean, to have access to every event from every shooter for every stage, boy, you can learn so much from that. And that's what we did, especially when the match is fresh, especially when you have video, and especially when you can make a spreadsheet. And what we found, we took his performance and we spreadsheeted it against the winner of his division, who's a grandmaster. And what we found was death by 1,000 cuts. And the interesting thing is when you make a spreadsheet, and the guy that won Carry Optics wasn't on our squad, so we didn't know exactly what his stage plans were, but the spreadsheet reveals very quickly if it's the same or similar stage plan. Very, very quickly you can figure that out if you do it when you're still really fresh on the stages, when you really remember it well. And of course, if you have video, that helps a bunch. But we learned that when the first shot was standing, he beat the grandmaster. If the first shot was moving, he did not for that shot. Okay, so that tells us a couple of things. That tells us, number one, hey, my stand and shoot game is perfect. I mean, I'm in great shape here. I'm beating the GM. If it's a moving first shot, if there's a period of movement before the first shot, that needs to get a little snappier. So now we have something very specific to learn and very specific to train. I can back off. Well, I don't need to spend as much time standing still and drawing as I do need to move before I fire my first shot. Okay? And we probably talked for 4 hours about the difference between shooting alphas and calling every shot. And because different words mean different things to different people, number one, it was great that he got to that conclusion on his own. That was super, super powerful. And the difference between shooting alphas and calling shots is shooting alphas as a goal will cause you to slow down. Calling every shot in the center of the available target area will not cause you to slow down. And calling your shots in the center of the available target area produces a pretty good number of alphas. You're going to have some close charlies. But if you shoot your partials in the middle of the available target area, you are rarely going to have a mic and or a no shoot. What about charlies and deltas? I'm not a math whiz, but compare Charlie Delta to Alpha Mike no shoot. And tell me which way the math is better. You'll have to do the math for me. I'm not a massive math expert. Now, the other thing that's interesting is if you can see an unscored error in your video, you can go into your spreadsheet and find it. And that was fun. We had one situation where we got to a side fault line, took 2 targets on the way in, but we had to adjust our feet to get to the 3rd target from that position. And so, guys, how long does that take? A lot of stages have this. You get into a side fault line, you've got 2 targets done on the way in, but you got to reposition your body for the 3rd one because we weren't set up quite right for the last target. I was shocked to find out that in that instance, it was 1.47 seconds to reposition the feet. Because you've got, look at the fault line, bring the gun back up, find the target. 1.5 seconds on what I think was a 15 or 16 second stage. So that means we spent 10% of the time on that stage moving our feet for one target. That is an easy thing to prevent in the walkthrough. So something like that, stand by for actual technical shooting advice. You want to have those 2 targets done on the way in, but you want your body to be in a place where you can shoot the 3rd one without moving your feet. Okay? And that's a walkthrough thing. Okay? Now, when you establish that in the walkthrough, it is critical that you show your body how to do that without words. The reason why is if you have a picture of doing that, that doesn't require the conscious mind to play that picture. But if you tell yourself what to do, the conscious mind is awake, narrating, analyzing, getting involved. That's not what you want. Okay, you want to show your body how to do that so that the conscious mind's not required. You do that in the walkthrough. You do that in your visualization. So I mentioned death by 1,000 cuts. We did not find, we learned that a standing reload was right around 2.5 seconds. It's a long time. We learned that having to hit the stomp box twice is a multi-second event. So these are good things to learn. Like, these are unscored errors, right? These are costing a serious amount of time. And then we learned that we're lagging behind the GM on splits by about 0.5 to 0.10. Okay. We learned that we're lagging behind the GM on transitions by an average of 2 to 3 tenths. I keep telling you guys, transitions. Transitions is where it's at. Right? If he tries to take that 0.5 to 0.10 gap down, we risk Charlie's Delta's mics. But if we try to get that transition number down and we do it correctly, we actually improve accuracy in the process. We certainly won't deteriorate it if we do it correctly. Okay? And then, and by the way, that was the longest workday AndersonShooting.com has ever had, 5:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night. But yeah, it may be my longest workday ever, if you count the drive time, right? That's a long workday. That's 5 to 5 is 12 plus another 5. 5 to 5. Yeah, roughly a 17-hour workday. That is the kind of service I will provide. And this would go into the category of the VIP experience. Yes, it's expensive, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And then the following day, after we had all these discussions and looked at all these numbers, it's rainy, it's cold. And I'm perfectly willing to go out in the range, and the cold doesn't bother me one bit. I've got the right amount of clothes, no big deal. My client hates mud. Of all the things in the world that he hates, mud is number one. Cannot stand it, doesn't want anything to do with it. So, okay, cool. But we got a barn. Okay, so what we did was we take, on our spreadsheet here, we can now categorize the biggest opportunities for improvement. It's pretty cool, right? Because most people, if they get beat by a couple seconds on a stage, all they can think of to do is run faster and shoot faster. Oh, by the way, I forgot something. Let me see if I wrote it down. I may have skipped over it. Let's see, make sure I get this right here. Okay, so right when the match is over, we did this on the way home from the match. Right when the match is over, if you're not driving, go into Practice Score Competitor, use the Edit Scores function, and correct the errors that you know are mental. Okay, you can go in there, you can take out your mic, and you can add 500s if you want to. If you had a miss on the swinger, that could be technical or it could be mental. Only you know the difference, but you can correct that. And when we corrected the errors that were 100% mental that we knew we could correct, I think we got a 10% bump on our percentage. I think we went from 75 to 85 of the win or something like that, rough numbers. So do that first. Okay, go into Practice Score Competitor, correct the errors that you know are mental, and if you're keeping a journal, write down how you solved them. Okay, so do that first. All right, let's get back where we were. All right, so then we still have the stages printed out. We know the biggest areas for improvement that we have, and we're going to dry fire it. I've told you guys to do this 1,000 times. Hey, I want to get faster at this. Cool. Set it up in dry fire, put a part-time on it. What else can I do? Set it up in dry fire, put a part-time on it. That's all you got to do. Okay? So what you do is you set up something that approximates, like, for example, righty-tighty. We chose to go to the right corner first. May or may not be the best way to shoot it. Don't really care right now. But we know we can save 3/10 on that stage plan if we go to the right corner first. Sorry, left corner first. Okay? So we practiced that. How long does it take? It's taken this long. Okay, give me 1/10 of a second. How? I don't know. We got to get our firearm from the holster to this corner. Where can we find 1/10 of a second? Okay? And then you repeat that process until you're maxed out. You want to start in match mode with acceptable shots, acceptable sight pictures. Figure out what that par time is, and then get into speed mode and start taking tenths off of it. Where can I get 1/10? Okay, good. Where can I get another 1/10? Okay, I'm pretty maxed out. All right, so once you're maxed out, there's a couple things you need to do. Ideally, you'd be able to run the new par time with acceptable shots. That would be ideal. Shouldn't be too difficult. But what might be even more important than that is repping whatever you learned. Rep it until it becomes subconscious. Meaning the next time you see a retreat to a left corner, you will know how to do it and you won't need to think about it. And you may need to add something like that into your dry fire repertoire so that you do it every day. Okay? But once you figure out how you beat your par time, do enough reps to make it subconscious. Or do enough reps to make that particular activity as subconscious as possible. And I don't know what the number is, but it's certainly more than 20. And you may not be able to do it full speed. And if you can't, that's okay. Doing it at reduced speed will still make it subconscious. Okay? And all you're doing is being able to do the new thing without conscious thought. That's the definition of that. Okay? And it can be helpful also in your journal to write those things down when you learn them. Hey, on a left retreat, these things are important. Okay? Write those things down. Go back and read them. You don't want to keep learning the same things over and over again. And the most interesting part about this whole thing is we did not fire a single round of live ammunition outside of the match. It's the first time I have ever done a training weekend without firing a single live round. It's fascinating. Okay? There is no need to fire a round when you're working on movement. You protect the self-image and you save ammunition. Right? So on the subject of protecting self-image, let's say you're working on movement and your times are dropping rapidly, but the hits are poor. Is that good or bad? Are we making progress or are we going backwards? Well, I know we're making progress. Most shooters, many shooters, would come out of that saying, yeah, I took a half second off my movement, but my shots are crap. Well, you're working on movement. You got exactly what you were looking for. And there's something else interesting there, too. If we know that we don't shoot very accurately when we're thinking about our feet, most people would agree with that. In training, why would you ever think about your feet in competition? If you know it contributes to poor accuracy, why would you ever do it in a match? Wow, because you got to get the technique right. Well, they're not judging your feet, pal. You don't get to take a well-placed foot comment and turn a delta into an alpha or a Mike into a Charlie. You don't get to do that with well-placed feet. You do that with hit factor. And the ammunition saving is obvious. But if there's no Mikes or deltas to paste, you're protecting your self-image and you're working on your shot calling. How do I know if I'm hitting the target in dry fire? Call your shot. shot calling is extremely easy in dry fire. Extremely easy. Okay? And I am available to do this experience with you. It will not be cheap if it's one shooter. If you want to reach out to me, I'll let you know what the costs are. If you have 2 or 3 people that want to do it, it'd be the same as doing it for one, just for 2 or 3. But we saved me and this shooter. We learned so much about how to improve his performance at matches without firing a single bullet outside of competition. The most unique and interesting training weekend I have ever had to date. Okay. Hope you enjoyed today's program. As always, go to andersonshooting.com, click on upcoming classes to see where we're at and what we're doing. And if there's something I can do for you to save you years of struggle, just let me know, steve@andersonshooting.com, and I will do it. Until then, till we meet again on the range, online, or anywhere else, be like me, do what I do, say it with me. 1, 2, 3, get to work.